Hi, Nick Collier here, and this is my shop. Come join me. We'll have some fun. Now, we need to wire this from here, kind of coming up and going into here, and there's a plug in there, so I'm going to just stay with going with the plug. Oh, this doesn't want to be here. Where does this want to be? Yeah, that's not a good place for it. I'm thinking right up in front here. All right, let's take it off. So something like, gee, that would be perfect right there. Okay, well, we just need to put a platform in here with a couple of holes in it. And we're going to go find a piece of metal and drill a couple holes in it, and we'll come back and we'll weld it onto this brace, and that should give us what we want. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, let's crank it up. Looks pretty good. We'll just go in underneath and do some overhead welding. Good and solid. Alright, so we're set up, we're ready to go. I still need to get a belt. I got a belt, but it was an inch too short. So what we're going to do right now is build the bracket for the platform for the sanding disc, or sanding belt. So, but it's hailing out, and you're not going to be able to hear much of anything anyhow. So we're going to turn the sound off, maybe fast forward this part, and just film it. All right, there's our pattern. And it stopped hailing, so we're back. Okay, here's the general plan. We're going to cut this out on a thin piece of material and put the thin piece of material up on the pattern torch and see if it'll follow it. Let's just take it over and see. Yeah, sure. If the pattern torch is going to follow it, no problem. So let's get a pen. We're going to follow our design here, and we want to make it an 1/8 of an inch smaller. How big is our 1/4 inch? Yeah, so we're going to make it an 1/8 of an inch smaller. There, and this wants to be this way by 1/4 and down by an 1/8. And I think that's going to do it. Now the other thing I want to do is make sure that we're nice and square here. Okay, let's take it over to the shear and cut this thing up. Okay, we chopped away some of the excess. Now we'll go ahead and run it in here and do the same thing for the interior. Get a little closer. All right. Now we'll take it over to the Beverly shear and this is a great tool. I was introduced to this in my college days, way back there. And basically, it's got a lot of leverage, and you'll see in a minute, it cuts straight lines like nobody's business. Of course, I screwed it up. But it also comes in and cuts. The closer you get it to the, well, there's the telephone. Okay, so it cuts straight lines no problem, but here's where it really shines. You come into that real tight turn, this real tight turn here, and watch what happens. The closer I get it to the center of, or to the inside of the cutting edge, the more control I have. So I just like take little 1/4 inch cuts. And there we are. It's called the Beverly Shear. Now, Harbor Freight has a cheap version of this, and it works okay. I had one for years. It's reasonably functional, but the Beverly Shear, oh man, you can see it made a perfect cut. So we go ahead and cut the rest of this off. And we've got our pattern. All right. Okay, you can see that the shear cut a pretty nice arch there, but it also kind of peeled the metal up. So we're going to take it over to the anvil and just kind of tap it back down. Other than that, I think we're set. Now I need to drill a hole in this so that I can mount it, and we'll be back. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is get these two bolt patterns into this plate. And you know, I decided that I don't really, at this point, I don't need to bring this platen down or up. Fairly complicated. It's not necessary. I've got to, that adjustment over on the disc, and I hardly ever use it. I don't think in the 35 years I've used it more than 5 times. So we're just going to go straight to a 90-degree platen here, and if it turns out that I need it, okay, I'll come back and redo it. So for now, let's take the bolts out. And take the plate off. Let's bring it over here. Yeah, and I think what we'll do, we'll bring you over here and down a little bit so you can see, is we'll bring the plate over to the holes. It wants to line up with the bottom edge here, and then we'll figure out where 90 degrees is and transfer punch it. Let me go get a clamp. That's pretty close. Now we'll see how square this is. I mean, it's a little off, but I think we can just adjust it when we get ready to weld. And we may end up taking some of this off anyhow to get down a little bit lower. But maybe not, I don't know. So, for right now, we've got this. We're set. No, we're not. Just a little bit more. Yeah, that's better. We're going to come up with a transfer punch. A little bit big. There it is. Okay, this goes there. Okay. We're pretty much still there. And there's our marks right there and there. That should give us what we want. Okay, let's take them over and drill them out. And all right, we're going to drill a little pilot hole first. We'll be back. Okay, let's put our belt back in place. And it ain't light. There we go. Let's see if I can swing around here. All right, we got one side in. Finally. Yeah, it's going to be just fine. Looks good. Now I've got a piece of 1/4 inch here that we can get right on top of that and slide that all the way out to the end. I think it actually might go good just like it is. So we got to get rid of this rough edge here, so I'm going to just saw that off. Okay, we're going to square this thing up here first before we put in any platform. And we'll kind of kick that back a little bit. Come on. That looks pretty good. And then we'll get a smaller square. Then we want to see how square this is. And it doesn't look too bad. Okay. All right, well, we got it squared up this way, and I squared it up to this line here, and that looks good. And we've got it squared this way, and that's great. And we've got it squared up this way, with about an 1/8 of an inch gap between the paper and the plate. So I think we're ready to kind of weld it. Let's see what we can do. All right, well that's good for that. Now there's one or a couple of more things that need to be done. And if we go up here a little bit, we'll see that there's a bolt right here. And that bolt is literally the lock that locks this roller in from adjusting side to side. So we need two of these. And of course I don't want to have that ugly ass bolt sitting there. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. Maybe. Jesus. Ouch. It's coming, but reluctantly. I think what happened is the pressuring it in mushroomed out this tip, and that's made it hard to get out. So when we put a new one in here, we'll go ahead and put a dog point on the end of that, and that way it'll contract down and won't get in the way. So we've got to come up with a couple of bolts. We'll be back. Okay, so now you take that in until it touches. There it is, and actually that looks like just perfect length. So we're going to just go with that. Alright, so there's two things we want to do. We're going to dog point the end of this so that it crushes and doesn't mess up the threads. And then we're going to slit it right down the center and put this washer in so that it is a kind of a wing nut, and that ought to give us what we want. We'll be back. Okay, well, the saw blade is just a little bit too narrow for the washer. So what we're going to do is come in with the cutoff blade and widen that gap. And that looks pretty good. It's almost there. Take some kind of hammer. That's better. Okay, so now I think it's probably a good time to come in and either braze that. Yeah, probably braze it would be the answer. And let's go over and start brazing. Okay, well, all of my brazing rod is pretty old. I mean, maybe 20, 30 years old. So it's got a bit of corrosion on it from just sitting around. So I've got to clean my rod before I use it. There we go. All right, so let's fire this baby up. That looks better. Okay, we'll let those cool off and we'll come back. Okay, I dog pointed the end of the bolt. We brazed it in place. Let's give it a try. I like it. I like it. All right, once we get our belt in place, then we can tighten this thing up and make it function and give it a try. I think that's all that's left, really. Well, we could take it over and put it on the bench, but the bench isn't quite large enough yet. Let's bring it down. All right, well, everything is in place. It's all nice and solid, and we'll give it a run. I think it smooths it out just beautifully. So, one more project down the tubes. And not much else to say other than this is Nick Collier checking out.